Welcome to Best Picture This, where it is always Oscar season. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian. In this show, we reevaluate every Best Picture nominee from the 21st century and decide whether to keep it or kick it from its Oscar pedestal.
It's almost like the movie is like a precious ring, maybe. And on the one hand, we have the option to bring it into a cave and live with it forever and survive only on raw fish, wear a loincloth. And on the other hand, we could kick it and cast it into Mount Doom, never to be seen again. Would you agree?
If we kick it, then does it destroy the world?
I would like to think that if we kick it, it destroys the movie once and for all.
Epic Theaters is showing Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, on April 9th, 10th, and 11th. So you can see it on the big screen for $6 in Palm Coast. So go check it out and tell them Best Picture This sent you. Also, thanks a lot to Pinheiro Marketing Group for producing this video, and if you need some video help or marketing needs, then go check out PinheiroMG.com.
Check them out. So before we decide whether or not to keep or kick something, we need to understand what else came out that year. So in 2002, the nominees for Best Picture were Chicago, Gangs of New York, The Hours, The Pianist, and today's movie, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, directed by Peter Jackson. Let's see the trailer.
The fate of the world will soon be decided. The dominion of evil grows even stronger. There is a union now between the two towers, Barad-dûr, fortress of the Dark Lord Sauron, and Orthanc, stronghold of the wizard Saruman. The peril of the Ringbearer deepens. An unseen danger draws closer, for there is another who hunts the ring.
The thieves! They stole my precious, and we want it!
Come back to you now, at the turn of the tide.
Very good. The Two Towers. This movie got a measly 6 Academy Award nominations.
That's
Nothing
all
near the 13 from the Fellowship. It won 2, and among the nominations were, it won the Best Sound Editing, Visual Effects, and I won't bore you with the rest. They're all technical. Coming up in the show, we'll do our Farley Award for the most awesome moment. We will do a golden take. And then we'll ask each other a important question that is designed to finally grasp that fish that's flopping around in the stream on the way to Mordor. We'll also talk about what might have been from different actors playing different roles. We'll talk trivia and the big reveal. Mike, will you keep this movie or kick it from the top 5 of the year?
Would you say that fish is, what does he call them, a crunchable fishes?
I don't know. I'm not a fisherman myself.
No, I think Smeagol was in his day, I think. But first, our Farley Awards. That's when we give you our most awesome moment or thing about the movie. And I know you hate when I cheat, Brian, so I'm not going to give 2. I'm not going to bring up Smeagol and how the motion capture is amazing, but also how I loved how dramatic he was. It reminded me of my 8-year-old daughter, Charlotte, and he's, I'm starving, and then Frodo gives him a little bread, and he tries to choke us. I mean, that's parenthood, right?
I'm glad you wouldn't bring that moment up.
I wouldn't bring it up because that would be cheating. My real best moment is Helm's Deep, the battle before Helm's Deep, but not the battle itself. preparation for the battle. I loved how in this part of the movie, all of a sudden, everything goes quiet. Everybody is in dire moods. They're all kind of waiting for this war that they don't want to come their way. You see young boys pulled from their families. You see them put in given weaponry that's too heavy, put in shields that are too big. And you just get this sense that in other movies, there would have been the soundtrack of the music trying to get everyone pumped up. There would have been a speech. Somebody would have given an inspiring speech
That's
to
true.
get people fired up.
There isn't much of a speech going on. There
Peter
usually
Jackson
is.
plays it the total opposite way.
Yeah.
And instead of getting us fired up, he wants us to think about how serious war is, how serious death is, and that humanizes the whole story, right?
But
It's
it's a
not
movie-
about orcs anymore. It's about humanity.
It's a movie where you have so many opportunities for these kind of speeches, and
Yes.
there's plenty of them. This kind of high rhetoric and Shakespearean kind of a tone to it. But yeah, I don't really remember a grand speech right before that.
And even when the army is
Battle.
coming, they make a point to make it even extra quiet, where you even hear the wind, and they just watch this army, 10,000 strong of orcs coming their way, and they're just watching from the tower.
Are they
watching them
orcs or are they Orokai?
It's both. The orcs are like the little scrawny ones, and the Orokai are like the ones with the dreadlocks that are bigger. Those are
Because I remember that I
Those are the
was
boss
getting some
orcs.
flack for that during the
Yeah.
fellowship.
yeah, you made a fool of yourself
From
in
the
that
Fellowship.
episode. That was
To me, they're all the same. It's these big monsters with strange prosthetic faces.
I guess so. The makeup is fantastic. though.
Makeup is good.
But also I like in that scene how they kind of know that the king is misplaying this, but they stay. They're standing to fight, and it's kind of partly because it's the right thing to do, but also because what's the alternative?
The thing I love about Helm's Deep, actually, I find, as I've said before, a lot of the hand-to-hand combat, it just gets
Wears
kind
on
of
you a little bit.
Yeah, it gets a little tedious to me. But when they're swinging these ladders up,
That's so cool.
it's like, oh wait, they're gonna get in, and how are they gonna fend off all those guys? Although I did think it seemed like at some point you could probably have the strategy of, pushing that ladder back.
Yeah, they try. They try. I like
just
that
an
though.
idea next time
The,
if
the battle
Helm's Deep.
focuses on logistics. It's not
Yeah.
just about that hand-to-hand combat and being cool. It's also like, how does an army try to get through these thick stone walls? They have the high ground. They're shooting arrows down at you. At one point, we see sort of a group of orcs walking along a stone bridge, and they all have their shields, kind of creating
Yeah.
a wall and a ceiling above them.
Good trick.
It's so cool. And then you throw the ladders in there.
So
and
why
it's-
do you think Sauron didn't build a few more of those bombs? I
We're gonna
he
go
made-
back to these questions.
He made one bomb. Let's make two of them.
One's all you need.
Make three of them.
You've got the bigger army. All you need to do is get that bomb through the weak spot, because every stronghold has a weak spot, and then you're good. And it's just a war of attrition at that point.
My most awesome moment was a even quieter moment, and this is
quieter.
even quieter. This is when Aragorn is walking, and they're marching, and there's a lot of Aragorn walking with his companions throughout the movie. But as Aragorn's walking and he's flashing back to the moments with Arwen, the elf played by Liv Tyler, I thought that was the most emotional moment of the movie to me. You really felt the conflict there, because he's basically given away her, she's willing to give up her immortality to kind of be with him, and he's declined it, but he loves her so he's declining it because he loves her so much. And I think that dynamic is really complex, but it's very human too. I mean, there's a lot of relationships that don't work out for different reasons, and I thought that's one of the great strengths of the whole trilogy, I think. And there's times when it's a little bit confusing, like, why are we flashing back? And it kind of revisits it sometime later.
Yeah, he
And-
doesn't give us those signposts to let us know where we are in time. He just kind
Exactly.
of jumps back.
But Liv Tyler is just this magnetic force, looking right into the camera, these close-ups, and I think those are also really, really, really great moments. So Aragorn and Arwen, I thought, was really well done in this movie. So let's go to golden takes.
Okay,
It's not just a hot take.
this
Best
is
picture
this
this
is a level.
It's
up.
golden or it's nothing. So let's hear the golden
So
take.
this is going to be golden, but I know we're not in question time yet. But I wanted to pose a question to you first, because
Mm-hmm.
it all kind of ties together. So Keith Phipps of the AV Club, he said, to live up to expectations, The Two Towers only had to be as good as its predecessor, and astoundingly, it's better. Sarah Sands of the Daily Telegraph said, "The Two Towers is like being trapped in a nerd's bedroom."
What could be better than that? Or
Which,
is that a negative review?
which is more true? I think it's a negative review.
I would think that's a negative review.
Like, does this movie, is the world too big for you? Are the nerdy things
Well,
too nerdy?
I don't
What was
think
your
the
reaction?
nerdiness was a problem. You kind of get into Lord of the Rings knowing that you're entering nerddom. But I feel like the movies benefit from having a year in between them. You know, you watch 2001 in the theater and, you know, you're excited for Two Towers,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to wait till 2002 to watch it. I think that is actually kind of good for it because it's kind of overwhelming. It's like
It is.
2 Thanksgiving feasts in a row. And I found myself, because I did watch this like a week after, or maybe even less than that. It was about a week after I watched The Two Towers.
Same.
And I found myself a little bit feeling like I was eating that delicious pie on top of my delicious Thanksgiving meal.
Okay.
But so does that answer the question? I mean, I do think that it was a great piece of pie,
yeah.
and
It's not too
it's
much
kind of
for you.
unfair to compare it to the overwhelmingness of the other epic that we just watched for 3 hours, because they do stand on their own. They have their own kind of arcs.
I don't think it's unfair to compare this against Fellowship.
No, I think that it's
record.
unfair to compare the experience based on the fact that I'm so fresh on Fellowship.
See,
Is it a better movie? I think Fellowship is superior to this movie.
Yeah.
In part because there are some kind of the tediousness of it. You know, I think more Gollum on the screen is not good.
Ooh,
I'm
I
not
don't know about
I'm not a
that.
big Gollum fan.
No, you're wrong about this one.
I am correct about
more,
this.
More Gollum makes
More
this movie.
orcs, more
Whoa.
more Gollum.
Oh,
more-
you're saying no orcs. More
those are
orcs
not
is a
as
bad
good.
thing.
More orcs is usually bad.
So who do you want more of?
Aragorn and Arwen, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Would you prefer?
I want Boromir back.
Boromir was good. I did miss Boromir a lot.
I also don't love Grima.
Which one is it? You're gonna have to give me.
Grima is like the guy who sort of looks like Ozzy
Black-haired guy.
Osbourne,
Okay,
Jack White.
I'm with
know.
you. So let me get into my.
All right.
Let me get into it.
So
here.
that was not even your golden take.
No, that was a question.
that
a
was
precursor.
a pre-golden take
Yes.
question. Okay, go ahead.
So Kathy Mayo of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, she said, "Call it a pretty good film, and I'll agree with you. Call it a great one, and I will beg to differ." And that is what I think my golden take ultimately comes down to. Fellowship, like you said, is a totally different movie, and that was surprising to me because these were shot simultaneously. This
Yeah.
Fellowship and Return of the King all shot at the same time.
Yeah, in about 16 months, I think, for the whole shooting of it.
Yeah, and they come out year after year after year, three years in a row. So you would kind of think that this is just one continuous story chopped into 3 blocks. But I don't think that that's the case at all. I think this movie has its own identity. I think it's more talky. I think it's less fantastical. Not in a bad way. It still has all the spectacle there, but I think the first movie sort of focused more on lore, and this movie focuses more on people and sort of the philosophy of war and when it's appropriate and not appropriate to fight. But I don't think quality-wise you could even compare the two. I think that Fellowship is that much better than that, and I'll tell you why. When I was watching this movie, I had a notepad next to me, and I wasn't writing a ton, but every now and then I would have a thought, and I'd think, I want to write
I'd like to see this notepad.
It's messy. I'm going to tell you that right now.
We should auction off pages of it someday. You know?
But afterwards, I'm looking over this notepad, and I'm realizing how many of the notes that I put down were negative, which kind of was a little bit of a bummer. So I just
Usually
want
a bad sign.
I want to read you some of these and just see if you if you agree.
Inside the mind.
Yes, and
Mike.
just let me know. Feel free to cut in and let
Okay.
me know if you think that this is a bad take or a near golden take.
Okay.
Let me know. So, spend a ton of time with Merry Pippin - worst characters.
I
Ents equal worst new character? Question mark.
The Ents. Yes, I would agree. I'm not a huge Ents fan.
Who's the black-haired guy's name that you just mentioned?
Grima.
Grima. Ozzy Osbourne.
He's sort of like pre-Gollum.
So black-haired guy's performance, frowny face. Ton
Yeah.
of new characters, but not great intros. And the exposition was one of the best things about Fellowship. Pacing, much worse. Jokes don't land. Faramir's daddy issues. Boromir, repeat. Exclamation point. Camera more static. Too many death fakeouts. That Aragorn thing with over the edge. And then, all right, so you love Arwen. I
do.
agree.
I love
that
Arwen.
relationship is good.
Big crush on Liv Tyler.
But in this movie, they try to set up this secondary, almost love story with Arwen and this blonde girl
So-
at Helm's Deep.
First of all, Arwen is not even a big. From what I understand, I am not a student of the actual novels, but from what I understand, Arwen plays a much bigger role in the movies than she does in the book.
Okay.
So I kind of got a little bit of like, we got to force a little more Liv Tyler into the movie. I kind of got the feeling like that's what's happening here.
But
I was
what's the
okay
deal
with that, but
what's the deal with this side love story, though? See, I got the impression
it's
that
not a side love story. It becomes the real love story,
it's
doesn't it?
not, though. Like, at what point in this movie do they have any interactions that feel meaningful? They just kind of talk. She gives him bad soup. He has a cute. It's a little bit of a meet cute. She
I
gives
do
him bad soup, and he tries to dump it out and burns his hand. Is that when they fell in love?
Are we talking about the same person? This is the blonde princess.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
brings up a sword, and Aragorn is kind of impressed.
Yep.
I thought that scene was good. I
Ugh.
kind of bought that. But then when he shows back up, spoiler alert, Aragorn does not die. When he comes back in and she's happy to see him, I kind of did buy that. But I didn't really think like, oh, they fell in love. But I don't think they're supposed to exactly.
But that's the thing. I watched the extended edition, so I might have even had more scenes of them together than you did.
You can't get enough.
And I figured, okay, they're having a nice interaction. That's good. But
Maybe-
I didn't feel like anything was established. And after the the death fake out, Gimli comes in and makes it a point to pull her aside and tell her as if she lost something. And how did Gimli know that I don't know, that whole thing just felt like the movie trying to force
Maybe-
a romantic entanglement where there was not one.
Maybe every bad thing about this movie was actually in the extended cut, and it got cut from the real theatrical movie.
Maybe.
It's
That's
possible.
fair. All right, I've gone on too long. Your golden take.
My golden take is that the greatest accomplishment of the Two Towers, and I do not think that it is. I don't like it as much as Lord of the Ring, but I do not think that it is very much of a step below the quality of the movie.
It's still
I
very
think
good.
I think it was mostly because of the fatigue, the Thanksgiving effect, that I was having a little harder time with it than Fellowship. But I think that the greatest accomplishment that Peter Jackson makes in the movie is taking a character who is so grotesque and unlikable by definition. Gollum is supposed to be
Yeah.
just a horrible, presence to be around. And yet, when Frodo starts to feel some sympathy for him, I did too. And I was kind of surprised at myself because I was like, okay, don't like Gollum, check. That's an obvious thing. You're not supposed to like Gollum.
Yeah.
But then as he's like being very childlike, he's playing in the river. He's like by himself and he's kind of humming to himself. And when he does the close-ups and you see those like big baby eyes,
Yeah.
obviously he's not cute. I still
But
don't
he is
really
in a
like
way.
Gollum.
In a way.
But you can understand that he feels lonely and despised.
Yeah.
You get that sense. And
Well,
Frodo,
the eyes are like the portal into
They
his
are.
humanity, right? Because everything else has gone away.
Yeah.
He was in the cave too long with the raw fish
Right.
and the loincloth.
so when Frodo is starting to feel like, you know what, this guy got turned by the ring, that could happen to me.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very profound moment. And again, it's like it expands the power of the movie so much because it's got this universal, like, okay, that can happen to every person in the world has had to confront this situation where you thought that one person or somebody or a figure from history or somebody
Mm-hmm.
was despisable, and you made the right choice that this person, I don't like that person or that thing, and then you change your mind, and that's such a powerful thing to happen, and I thought it was effective. That said, also the action of Gollum, the special effects, most of the time were great. Some of the lighting looked a little bit fake, but the splashing in the stream
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I was like, I have my eyes like laser focused on there, looking for some errors in the splashing, like, but it's like he got it perfectly.
Yeah, that
It's
work.
really
It's
incredible.
mostly when you have him right next to, real life characters. I think
Yeah.
that's when you notice most that the lighting doesn't quite hit him in the same
Yeah,
way.
they're-
They look a little shiny, and I mean he's digital, but
And I
for
really
the time,
don't like that. I mean, it does throw me out of the story somewhat, and
Really?
the Ents did that somewhat to me.
I mean, I was still completely able to empathize. It didn't take away from
With the Ents,
No, Smeagol's part of
yeah.
the story. I mean, I thought that that's the best part of the movie, and I think I said last time I sort of like how these special effects get dated a little bit because at the time this was
Charming.
amazing and yeah, it's charming and groundbreaking, and I think that it still is very, very good.
Yeah.
It's just now we could see little cracks in the surface because it's 20 years later.
Yeah.
I think that's normal.
So let's move on to our grand question. So this is part of the show where we ask each other a question that is designed to toss a dwarf of truth into an orc pile of ignorance and get to the real meat of what's going on here. So here's my question.
Okay.
Carrying on with our Gollum discussion,
Okay. Hit me.
does Andy Serkis deserve a Best Supporting nomination for this movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough
I
one.
mean, he's not even on the screen. It's a voice action.
Doesn't that make it even more impressive?
Well, what about all the Pixar movies?
Those are motion capture. This is different. That is completely made on a computer graphics all the way.
I think
This
there's a
is-
lot of Pixar movies that the expression and it's supposed to imitate.
Well, yeah, it's
not
definitely
that far
supposed to
different.
imitate, but he is in a full green suit up against a green screen. He's acting with all the little ping pong balls,
Yep.
and then they superimpose the computer on top of him. So I think that you get a lot more of his physicality and a real person's physicality than you do in, say, a Ratatouille. I don't see a bunch of human physicality in the rat, even though Ratatouille, great movie, just watched it recently. I don't know. I think I'm not upset about a nomination for Andy Serkis. I think it's cool. I think it sort of marks that things have changed in the medium and that we're open to that kind of
I-
thing now.
I don't remember if he actually did
Maybe that was for a return.
something. Anyway, we'll look it up and put it in the comments, or if someone is looking and wants to look it up and tell us in the comments, that'd be great.
So what do you think? Do you think it was? Do you think it's
I'm
deserved?
not supposed to answer it. I'm supposed to ask you the question of truth.
Okay. Okay.
I think there's too many places where the actor's face really is so much of the acting that I think that you kind of get disqualified from an acting Oscar because it's like a combo. If they did, it should be Andy Serkis plus the animator should get the acting nomination, which doesn't really make sense to me. Also, one little tidbit: Andy Serkis drank bottles and bottles of what he called Gollum juice.
Gollum juice.
It's a mixture
Do I
of
wanna know?
honey, lemon, and ginger to keep his throat lubricated for his intense vocal performance.
I don't know how true it is, but
So, fortunately, Epic Theaters has given us some Gollum
Some
juice
Gollum
here,
juice.
and we'll drink it after the show.
we don't have any straws.
Yeah,
so
we need
that's a
straws to get
problem.
that honey from there.
I don't know how true it is, but I've heard on some other film podcasts that apparently there's a rumor going around that Andy Serkis actually isn't in a lot of this movie, that a lot of the footage wasn't usable, and the animators had to basically create 90% of that character. So, I don't know. That's just a rumor I heard. I have
There you
nothing to
go.
back it up with, but
I
I
heard your rumors here first.
Yeah, yeah. So my question.
Yeah.
I like that you started it off with throwing the dwarf of truth because that's kind of part of this. So I mentioned before this is a talky movie, and Peter Jackson does a lot to make sure that we take the concept of war and death seriously. But it's also this giant blockbuster, and so there's a lot of levity. It's supposed to be fun. So my question is, did the jokes and especially the Gimli Legolas stuff work for you? Were they a welcome break in the seriousness, or did they feel like they undermined the seriousness?
I think they undermine the seriousness. And part of that is that when Legolas is saying, I just shot 17, 18,
Yeah.
19, it's like you don't believe that they are in any danger whatsoever.
Yes.
And I think that's really the problem.
Yes.
Gimli,
What does Gimli contribute?
Gimli is, it's like he's the most vulnerable because you can't believe he can keep up with Legolas and Aragorn as they're running through the
Yeah.
through the plains and through the mountains. And when he's there, he gets saved a few times by other people, you know,
Yep.
killing his foe. But you still don't really think there's any chance that Gimli's going to die or Legolas is going to die. So it kind of was like, all right, so what's gonna, you know, what's the outcome of the battle? It's, I don't know, the battle gets a little bit tedious to
But
me.
especially, specifically, that dwarf tossing scene, you know,
Yeah.
because he's said before, no one tosses a dwarf. And then in that moment, that's kind of that's the only way that he
Yeah.
can get over here. And he brings it up. So it's like a moment of growth for him.
I suppose.
They're on this bridge. The bridge is covered in thousands of orcs.
Yeah.
And then we just have two people fighting them off. And it's like they don't really even show us why that works so much. He throws them over there and they just start mowing these orcs down. So I didn't feel like that. I thought that was
Why?
for the joke of the dwarf
Yeah,
tossing,
totally.
but
Why?
not for any sort of actual plot reason.
Yeah.
But another thing, isn't this? I get that the orcs are evil, and the whole sort of concept of this movie is that good and evil are very black and white, right? There's no ambiguity there. Orcs have no other intentions but to kill and destroy the world. Okay, fine. But wouldn't the murder of the orcs in war mean more if it meant something? I mean, if it wasn't so
Yeah.
jokey?
It's like they're, yeah.
Like I feel like there's still
It's
should
hard to
be
know what's
some-
at stake. The people being protected at Helm's Deep, you do care about that. And when those ladders go up, I'm like, uh-oh, this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
But the tension of that war, I feel like it's more of a spectacle than it is a heart, you know, hit you in the gut.
Yeah, and I mean these Marvel movies bring these up a lot. They're kind of guilty of this also, where sometimes the bad guys lack humanity, so that we
Yeah.
can just be mowing down aliens because they're not human, so we don't really care about them. But that's less interesting, and I felt the same way here, where the orcs were, and they're supposed to be very, very disposable, but I don't know, there's something missing there when Jackson puts so much time into making us take war seriously, and then immediately undercuts that with jokes and doesn't show the other side as having any, you know, meaning or depth.
Right. I agree.
All
So-
right.
What might have been?
What might have been. So this is the segment where you tell me other actors who were considered for roles, and I tell you whether or not that was a bad idea.
I have 5 of them ready for you.
Okay.
So, these are people who were rumored to be these roles. Morgan Freeman as Gandalf.
Ooh. I'm gonna say that is doable,
I think so too.
but I prefer Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen is great. He'd become this kind of iconic, but
Yeah, he's just.
Morgan Freeman, you
They
could
both
almost
have
see.
they both have a very, very similar
Ga-
quality.
They
right?
do. Wise, but with a little twinkle in their eye.
Yeah, they're a little rebellious, a
Okay.
little mischievous.
Now, we mentioned this one, I think, before, but I have to bring it up again. Sean Connery as Gandalf.
No,
Still no.
no.
Patrick Stewart as Gandalf.
Maybe more than Sean Connery. He's in the same group. I mean, you have Magneto and Professor X there. They have the same quality also.
Okay, this one I thought is really a great one. Elrond. Remember Hugo Weaving, the
Yep. The head dwarf.
the head
elf.
dwarf.
The head.
I mean,
elf.
yeah. The head elf. David Bowie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
Totally.
do that. I'm
David
game
Bowie? Oh my goodness.
for sure.
They said no on David Bowie because he was too famous as David Bowie.
Oh, that's dumb. This is Agent Smith.
I know.
Come on. 2 years ago.
You know, with Aragorn, you're thinking the whole time, Mr. Anderson. Okay, last but not least on what might have been. Quentin Tarantino as Peter Jackson, directing Lord of the Rings. That was a possibility at one point.
No, I'm gonna say no with this one. I love Tarantino, but then this would have been a Tarantino movie,
Yeah.
and I think it needs to be a Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
You know, and also I don't know if we would have the New Zealand tie-in without Peter Jackson. I don't know if
They
he
could have
brought
done it on a
that specific-
soundstage somewhere.
Yeah, but you don't think the New Zealand part? I mean, that adds so much to the
Yeah,
landscape, to
just
the world.
do CGI helicopter sweeps of all those
No.
mountains. You know what I'm saying?
That's no.
All right, trivia. I have 6 bits of trivia that you can tell your wife, since she won't watch this show.
No.
First, Urukai, not orcs. All right, I get it. Urukai. They could not find enough 6 feet tall men to play the Urukai as extras.
Okay.
So there were some who were about 5 feet tall. And so around the set, they were affectionately named the Uruk Low. So the Urukai.
It's
the high, the low.
It's offensive.
Yeah, it is kind of offensive.
I mean, I'm not very tall, so I don't like that.
I don't mind it because I'm tall enough. Okay, so the orcs have black blood, right?
It's tarry.
Tarry, yeah.
I like how tarry it is.
It's gross blood.
It is gross.
If it was Tarantino, it would totally have been red, realistic-looking blood.
And I probably would have loved that too, honestly.
was-
I'm starting to come around in this whole Tarantino idea.
So, the inside of their mouth was supposed to look black too.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to use licorice-based mouthwash before each of their scenes to make sure the insides of the mouths look black.
So how do you feel about licorice?
So which cup did I say was Gollum juice? The other one, is licorice mouthwash, and we'll have to splash that on Mike after.
I mean, more important than the keep it or kick it question, which we'll get to next, is keep it or kick it, red licorice and black licorice.
I always am very equal on both. I love both.
All right, kick red licorice all day. It's
Eh,
horrible.
They're all good.
Black licorice, keep forever. Bring it into the cave with you, and you survive just on that.
Dip it in the Gollum juice, and you're good.
Oh man, it's great.
Viggo Mortensen in this movie kicks a helmet.
Okay.
Says, he kicks a helmet, and they're like, we can't find Merry and Pippin, the worst characters in the movie. Well, he was supposed to kick a fake helmet, and he actually kicked a real helmet, and he broke his toe.
Wow.
So that scream was totally amplified by the actual pain. And Peter Jackson was so impressed, and he only realized later that it was actually his real pain. He was so impressed that he kept on acting, and he made a point to say that Viggo Mortensen, the only reason he brought that up, even it was in the DVD, I guess, director or
the commentary. Yeah.
Because he wanted to make sure that happened to him, but think of all the things that the stuntman actually got injured. He's such a great guy, Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah,
What a
he's a
guy.
good guy. What do you think about his death fake out, by the way? I was ragging on the fake outs before, but I mean just how it happened. Were you into
The
that?
fact
or
that he
did
falls
Did you
off.
feel like it was a waste of time, no matter how it was done, because you knew that he wasn't going to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's sort of like Batman Rises, Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm.
For most of the movie, he's not even the Dark Knight. He's in some cave.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you watch Lord of the Rings, so you can see Aragorn, doing his thing. So anytime you lose your character for a while, and I think he's like sort of the main character. I think it's not as
Smeagol's
good.
the main character. in this movie.
Smeagol, I think we would try to see Lord of the Rings with no Smeagol. That'd be
feel
interesting.
It boggles my mind that you would want less of Smeagol when I'm completely on board with this being his movie. I feel like this is a movie entirely about redemption. You have all that Faramir stuff, my daddy didn't love me as much as my brother. And his brother said the same thing. I have to bring it back because my daddy will be mad if I don't. I mean, but Faramir redeems himself, just like Boromir did.
Legolas
And then-
auditioned for Faramir, by the way, originally.
Oh, really? Yeah, Legolas, I'm not so big on him, but I feel like Orlando Bloom is the right.
Yeah.
He's the right fit.
He's got that, baby face skin.
But I mean, for a movie that focuses so much on redemption, how do you take Smeagol out?
I feel like
that's
Smeagol
the
slows the
storyline.
movie down. I like the close-ups though. I see the emotion. I'm coming around to him. I pity him. I wouldn't have killed him either. Okay, so trivia number 4. More than 1,600 pairs of latex ears and feet were used during the shoot. Each had to be cooked in a special oven that was running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get it ready, okay?
Okay.
So, and the thing is, there's no way that you could take off these ears and feet without damaging them. So you had to use a new pair every single time.
Wow.
And they were shredded every time so that there wouldn't be a black market for old Hobbit feet.
Whoa. I mean, I can relate. I wear a new pair of sneakers every day.
And Sean Astin,
dirty.
Who is Samwise Gamgee, of course,
My Sam.
he guessed that there were 50 days that they had their feet put on, and they never were in any shots.
Oh, really?
They're just
sat
walking
around all
around.
day.
They
And
could have been wearing their Converse. Instead, they're sitting around getting their Hobbit feet put on. each hair meticulously inserted into it. Okay, number 5. On the Helm's Deep battle scene, there was an extra who had a eye patch.
Okay.
And it was like an actor who really had one eye. And Peter Jackson talked him into taking it off and showing his showing his eye socket. That was a real eye socket.
Yeah, it's a great shot.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that is a strength of this trilogy altogether, because everything is so huge, but Peter Jackson makes sure that we focus on these details. And that's
apparently
what amps it up. I love
apparently
that.
it helped the guy feel a little less self-conscious about his missing eye. Okay, last thing. Helm's Deep, that scene was edited down from 20 hours of footage, shot over a 4-month period with a rain machine. You think about that. It's all at night. It's all raining. 4 months.
I wonder how
20
many
hours of footage.
extras they had to, because I know a lot of them were digital. You know, like a Gladiator.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've ever talked about this before.
I think that we should have a marathon showing. Epic, if you're listening. Remember, you can see the 2 towers. April 9th, 10th, and 11th. $6 in Palm Coast. I think that we should talk them into finding that 20 hours of Helm's Deep footage and just watching the whole thing.
Just watching that straight, huh?
Start at 4 a.m. and go till midnight. And that would be great.
Wow. Speaking of Tarantino, apparently there's a 20-hour cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Is there really?
That's word on the street. Another rumor.
Holy cow.
Actually, that's
We
not
love
a,
rumors.
that's real. That's not a rumor.
Then finally, getting to our final conclusion. Keep it or kick it.
Whew. Okay, so honestly, I was hoping that this conversation would clarify my thoughts a little bit.
So you haven't really decided before the show started?
I didn't write
Really?
anything down. I went
Wow.
both ways. I was leaning
Freewheeling.
toward kicking it. Honestly, I was hoping that you would convince me otherwise. You have not. And so I think I have to kick it. I really like this movie. I mean, I'm not, it's definitely not a 2-star. You know, it's up there.
But at least 2.5.
I feel like
2
the
1/4
things
star.
that it does well, Fellowship did as well or better.
How can you penalize it for that? If you hadn't seen Fellowship,
But I
you would have kept
But
this
I did
movie.
see Fellowship, and I saw it 1 year ago.
Why does that matter?
Because it's the same thing. If one movie has a bunch of great stuff, and I have very few complaints about it, and the other movie that I see, I
Does all the
have
same great stuff.
more complaints about it, and the great stuff that it does has already been done, then why should I give this one? It's the same director, it's the same feat, and like we said before, it was shot simultaneously. So maybe this is an issue with editing that I have. I don't think it's an issue with performances. I think those are the same across. I don't know. I just think that there are a lot of characters introduced here, and I don't feel connected to them like I do all of the characters that were introduced in the first movie. I do like that it has its own personality, and it spends time on philosophy and morality a little bit more than the first one does, or at least in different ways. But I don't know. I'm not psyched about it. And if it was shorter and maybe all Smeagol, count me in.
Just a star show for Smeagol. Sort of like the Aaron Brockovich for Smeagol.
Yes.
The Castaway.
Get
for
him a
Smeagol.
rom-com. That's what I want to see. The Smeagol rom-com.
Practically is a rom-com with Smeagol.
It would just be
in
called Precious. Well, I guess
We
there's
have a
already a
movie
movie
called
called
Precious.
Precious. A novel by Sapphire.
I was thinking in the first 20 minutes of the movie, I'm kicking this movie.
Really?
Yep.
And then Helm's Deep.
And as I
swayed
went
you?
through the pitying of Smeagol, the Arwen stuff, which I like, King Rohan's grief for his son, although the line of nobody should have to bury their son, I think it's sort of like, I've heard that other places before, but I felt like it felt pretty fresh when he said it there. I thought that Merry and Pippin, although they're kind of annoying sometimes and they feel pretty slight, when they decide to try to talk the Ents into going to war, I bought that scene. That kind of redeemed them to some extent for me there.
So that a lot was all of the Ents stuff. That kind of ties into that World War II idea that we were talking about last time, right? I mean,
they're kind of the
it's
saviors
a lot,
going into
but they would not get involved until it affected them. You know, we have to think about it. This is not our war, but you're a part of this world.
they go
that
in
kind
and
of
then they
thing.
see the tree stumps.
Yes, and then their Pearl Harbor gets bombed, and they're like,
There's
"Let's do it.
something
We're in."
in any story. when you want to believe that the bad guys are so powerful that there's no possible way that the good guys can win. When a movie can do that and really make you think that Helm's Deep is falling, because it is falling, and when the good guys come back in, the Ents come in and they start wiping guys out, you feel this sense of relief. That was one of those kind of, as Aleem Hossein, the director who came on one of the previous episodes, he said that he's looking for that visceral response.
Mm-hmm.
I got some of that from the Ents coming in and saving the day. Like, okay, there's like there's like a palpable feeling of kind of a relief that this is, they're and it's like the good guys are becoming more powerful than the bad guys. Gandalf,
I was going to say, we haven't
I have
talked
a
about
little
Gandalf
bit of a
yet.
problem with Gandalf because it's totally the Deus Ex Machina, the
All is lost, and then he comes down the hill.
and it's like
It's a great shot, though.
It's just kind of plopped in at the end, but he does tease it that he's going to
He
come back
says, look toward the east at first light.
on the fourth day or whatever. But when you have the Ents coming in and you have Gandalf coming in, and it's like good can defeat evil. It's kind of I thought it delivered on kind of feeling inspiring at the end. I don't think that it is quite as good as as Fellowship,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that the Best Picture nomination is earned. Now, granted, this is the beginning of our 2002 series.
It is.
So, I have watched a handful of other 2002 movies. A couple of them are pretty strong contenders to be in the top 5. But for now, I'm going to say I'm going to keep The Two Towers in my top 5.
On the Gandalf front,
Yeah.
we get Gandalf the Grey in
Yeah.
Fellowship. In this one, we get no Gandalf. Then we get a surprise Gandalf the White. What did you think about that transformation? It brings something new to this movie. Now all of a sudden we're talking reincarnation.
You don't really know why exactly Gandalf turns white because he fell down with the spinning dragon. There's a lot of unexplained.
I
sorts
really
of
liked
things.
the line where he said that he's basically what Saruman was meant to be.
Yeah.
Saruman should have been playing this role as kind of a savior for this rebellion, but instead he was too weak, and so the world needs one of those, and Gandalf is going to fill that spot. I think that's a really cool idea. I was into that.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are kind of unexplained, and you just have to accept that, well, this is a fantasy world, Why is it that you put the ring on and you disappear? You just have to accept that that's the rules of the world they're in. And I still don't really understand how the Black Riders, the Ring
The
Wraiths,
Wraiths.
they're cool characters, especially on the horses
I love them.
in Fellowship.
And on the dragons.
But can they sense that the ring is there?
When it's on. they
Because
can.
it sure seems like they're following Frodo to some extent, but yet they can get within 6 feet of him, and then they don't know where he is. I don't understand that.
They said that when you go invisible, when you put the ring on, that
Yeah.
you go invisible to the world, but then you enter this wraith world,
Right,
and then
but-
they can see you. So it's almost like a signal's going off when the ring is on.
But even think about in Fellowship, they're hiding under the tree roots
Yeah.
below the street.
Yep.
You tell me that Black Rider on the horse did not know that Frodo was nearby?
He didn't have it on.
But that's why he stopped. They're sniffing around.
Well, because he had it on before that scene, and remember Sam helped him rip the ring. So then
He
they knew that
he
he was in the area.
He knew he was close. And somehow he couldn't actually see him. I don't know. There's something a little bit missing there. And
I guess we're both nitpicking a little bit. I
We are.
nitpicked more this time
if we're
than
nitpicking this much, partly it's like it's daring this much, but also we've got. I think it succeeds on the biggest, most important levels.
it does.
Yeah.
I think that the problems are bigger than just nitpicks. But you're right. I mean, this is definitely still. I don't know if I'd say it's a great movie, but it's a very good one.
It's a solid number 6 of the year.
It will-
7, 8,
maybe
9,
it'll be
10?
it'll be in the top 10, I think, but it's not going to be in my top 5. And
did get-
it's a great middle section. It does make me look forward to Return of the King,
Yeah.
even though I wasn't loving this one.
Yeah. Very good. All right. In the next episode, we talk about 2002's Best Picture nominee, The Hours. It's directed by Stephen Daldry. Stars Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore, Nicole Kidman. You can't get a more powerhouse trio than that. So that's exciting. It tells how the novel Mrs. Dalloway affects 3 generations of women who've had to deal with suicide in their lives.
I've never seen this one. Looking
haven't
forward
either.
to it.
I haven't
Well, we
either.
want to hear from you. Let us know what your favorite either Meryl Streep or Nicole Kidman movie is, and we'll read your answers on the show. You can find us at bestpicturethis.com or at Facebook and Twitter at bestpicturethis. Follow our page, subscribe to our feed, all that stuff.
Become a patron at patreon.com/bestpicturethis. Thank you to Pinheiro Marketing Group, PinheiroMG.com, if you want to learn more about all the services they provide. And again, remember that the 2 Towers is being played at the Epic Rewind, $6, April 9, 10, and 11. So thank you very much for listening to Best Picture This. Until next time, don't forget to drink your Gollum juice every morning to keep lubricated.
And eat your black licorice.
Mhm.
Never read. Never, ever read.
Chicken!